Hi everyone, welcome to the 9th episode of the Zicast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Ziaks, and today I'm joined by my co-star from Sleight of Hand, Emily McManaman.
Yeah, you got it, Emily McManaman.
Yep. And as always, I'd like to thank Casey McNichol for her continued support and for making sure that our operation is running smoothly, and also Grace Doyle, our former episode 2 guest, for doing the exact same. So, as always, the Zicast is a way for me to get to know my friends on a deeper level because everyone has a story. So, with that all said, Emily, how about we get into things?
Yeah.
So, do you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
No, not at all. So like you said, my name is Emily. I am a public relations major here at Quinnipiac, and I am in the 3+1 program, which means that I am graduating in May, which is crazy. And then I have another year, and I'm doing the ICM program, but I'm doing it from home, so I can save a little bit of money on room and board. But yeah, that's me now. What else is about me? I'm 20 years old, and I'm from New Jersey. I'm sure you'll be able to hear it when I start talking a little bit more. I don't know. I love all things creative. I love all things writing. I love all things film, and I'm excited to talk about some of that stuff today. So
Awesome. And what are some of your positions here at Quinnipiac?
Oh, I have a few. So I have a job with one of my professors, Dr. Lisa Burns, in the Media Studies department. And she's actually working on her own podcast called the First Ladies podcast, where her and another one of her colleagues, not a professor here, but I believe at Cambridge, they're doing a podcast together based on a book that they're writing about the First Ladies. So I'm working on that with her currently as her social media manager and like general assistant, anything that she needs there. I'm also the director of PR and marketing for my sorority here at Quinnipiac for Tri Delta, and that's very fun. I have to do a lot of photography for them, a lot of social media-based stuff like graphic editing, photo editing, all that Adobe sweet stuff. So I do that here as well. In terms of Quinnipiac, that's what I have here. I also have an internship outside of school that I got through LinkedIn, yay LinkedIn, at a PR agency based in New York City called Go PR. And it's the first internship I've had actually that's PR related, because although I'm a PR major, apparently it's like impossible to get a PR internship. So this was the first one that I've actually been able to do, and I love it so far. It's very fun, and I'm learning a lot about my future field of career. So yeah, that's a lot of the things that I have going on right now.
Awesome. I will say you have an elite LinkedIn.
Do I?
You do, yes.
Oh, thank you.
I'm impressed. I've been trying to up my LinkedIn game. So and this is a great transition into our first topic, which is where your passion for PR and marketing stem from.
Yeah. So when I came to college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's really cliche, but it's true. I thought I wanted to do like occupational therapy. Like that's the jump that I went from. It was OT to PR where I am now. But I knew I wanted to do something creative and something to do with writing because I've always been a big writer. I've never really been good at science or math, so I don't know what I was thinking when I originally was looking at OT. But yeah, I interviewed at the school, and originally I was like, just put me like in the School of Business, whatever. But I had an interview with somebody here, and they put me in the School of Comm. And so I emailed them, and I was like, hey, I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to be. And they said, well, based on what you described in your interview, like, you should probably try the School of Comm, not the School of Business. And I was like, okay. So I started as a media studies major, which is now my minor, but I started as media studies major because I feel like it's the most general degree in the comm school. And then spring semester of my freshman year, I took a PR class with Dr. Place, who I love. She just taught my capstone too. And that's kind of when I fell in love with PR in terms of writing, because it's a little bit of everything. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do PR or journalism at first. But journalism is mostly like one type of writing. PR, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. There's like pitches, there's press releases, but there's also like opinion pieces, which is more journalistic type. There's social media writing, there's copywriting. So there's a bunch of different types, and that's what I like, because if I do the same thing over and over again, I feel like I would get bored. So that's kind of what drew me to PR, because I've always been a big writer, and it's, you know, a bunch of different aspects of writing that you get to kind of delve into. And it also, you can combine it with certain fields of study. So like the internship that I have now, the agency is like a travel hospitality based one. So all of the clients are like hotels around the country or resorts or even outside of the country too. So I'm working with some really cool clients there. But one day I hope to maybe mix that in the future with film, and if some of my roommates become famous, and famous
I don't think
movie.
you have to worry about that.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't. When my roommates become famous movie directors and producers, knock on wood that they'll let me do the PR for their films. So that's what I hope to do one day. But yeah, that's where that interest kind of comes from.
Awesome. I love to hear about the writing, because that's kind of one of my fields as well. English major.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But yeah, I mean, mine's more on the creative side, but writing, it's such a useful tool, especially for doing what you want to do.
Oh yeah.
Which can be a little over my head with all relations and marketing things, and kind of like that. I'm sure that's given you a lot of great opportunities. So I'd like to hear about some, and I know you've already talked about it already, but some interesting internships or job opportunities you've had because of what you're doing in PR and marketing.
Yeah, definitely. I have one that I haven't talked about yet, so I'll go into that a little bit. There's an internship that I did the past 2 summers with a local a cappella group based in New Jersey, where I'm from. And it was a group I actually wasn't in high school, but it's not based at like one specific high school. It's like a professional group. And basically they have a staff that casts high school aged performers to come on and join the group, and there's usually about like 25 people in the group, and every summer they go on tour around the United States to about like 12 to 15 different cities every summer. And so I loved it when I got to do it as when I was in high school, and I only had to do it 1 year, and then COVID happened, so obviously they had to stop traveling. But when stuff started coming up again, when that PR class that I was talking about that I took my freshman year, the basis of that class was you pick a nonprofit client and you work on them the whole semester and basically like build a portfolio for them. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, how great would it be if I pick this organization, this nonprofit that I participated in, and then I go to them with it in the summer and see if I could get an internship through it. And that's exactly what happened. So I built this whole portfolio of pieces based on that project. And I went to the director, who was my boss, and he's one of my favorite bosses. I love him. But I went to him after really like not seeing him for a while, and I was like, hey, so this is what I'm doing in college right now. I literally like built a portfolio for you in terms of like, for PR and socials. Do you have like a socials PR person for tour this summer? Because if you don't, I would love to do something like that. And he was like, we actually don't. So they hired me based off of that. And so the past 2 summers I've been going on tour with them to some great cities. I love some of the cities we go to. We went to like this summer, I'm trying to think. We went to like Savannah, Georgia. We go to Tennessee every year. Nashville, awesome. I love Nashville. It's one of my favorites. Cleveland, Ohio is another one. There's just a lot of like good cities that we go to. And as somebody who loves to travel, combining those 2 things again was very fun for me. But yeah, so that's one of the big opportunities that I had over the past 2 years. And I just did stuff for them, like graphic making for their shows or for the actual tour dates. I did photography the second year I went, so I had to take all the pictures of the shows and edit all those and do all that jazz. And some video content as well. So that was one of the things that I did that I absolutely loved. It wasn't as much PR, it was more social, but it was definitely like marketing, like, representing a brand through social media. So that was a really cool opportunity that I got, literally from making a portfolio at a Quinnipiac class. So
Incredible. So, I mean, social media marketing, just like writing, that's another thing that's insanely useful. And since, I'm big into travel as well. Like my mother's a travel agent.
Really?
So that's why we've gone all over the place.
Oh, sick. I love that.
Whole life. And so like I've actually always wanted to go to Nashville. How was that with this group? And I know music's big down there.
Yeah, no, the music scene is awesome, and that's why we always go. Specifically the group that group is a rock and roll based group, so it's a lot of like classic rock songs. So that's kind of the speed down there, but with a mix of a bunch of other stuff. So when we go, we usually, because we know Nashville is like such a cool scene and a cool spot to go, we'll have a show during the day, and then at night we'll go into the city, and they'll kind of let everybody go off. Like you just go off in groups and do whatever you want to do. So I'll like hang out with my friend Mel, who she was an intern there, but she was one of the vocal directors, and we go around and you go to like, bars or restaurants, and there's always live music playing. You can walk into any restaurant and there's going to be live music. It's awesome. And everybody's so friendly down there and just so inviting, and it's just a crazy city too. There's always like bachelorette parties happening there, so you'll see like a bus of like all these bridesmaids just like, you know, going crazy, which is really funny. But yeah, no, Nashville, crazy music scene. If you're big into music, definitely I recommend going, especially at night during the when they have all the bars and the clubs and scene like that. They have really cool stuff.
It's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I know Ohio, that's where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, if I'm not mistaken.
That's where we go and perform, actually.
So
it's literally there.
So all tracks.
Yeah.
That's incredible to know. That's incredible you got an opportunity like that, because, of course, you have a history in the arts, so you got to kind of support that by also doing what you're doing now.
Exactly.
And kind of something else that you're a part of and that I think you've done a lot of marketing for as well is being in a sorority. So I'm curious as to what that's taught you and how it's helped your professional development.
Yeah, so being in a sorority was never on my radar, I'll be honest, before I came to college. My mom was in one, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's not something I really wanted to do. I don't think I'm that type of person. But then I just, you know, my spring semester freshman year, I decided to go to Meet the Greeks, which is like, you know, the event where you go and meet all the chapters on campus. And I really fell in love with Tri Delta, which is, you know, the chapter that I'm in now. Because the girls seemed very genuine, and they still are. And that's what I was looking for, because I'm not trying to make fake friends in college. I want to meet like genuine people. So that's why I was kind of hesitant and scared to join Greek life. But Tri Delta, very genuine girls. They're all very sweet, and I've made a ton of friends there. And I have, like you said, had that opportunity to be the director of PR marketing for them there. So some of the things that I do there is obviously run the social media accounts, but during the summer leading into the fall, I also do a lot of video creation, like content creation for recruitment, which is when all the girls basically go and you do that whole like long process and stuff. So I had to do a bunch of the content for that and you know, represent our sorority online and to these girls who are coming in and trying to meet us. But besides, you know, the PR and the social stuff, I feel like being in a sorority has just taught me to be more social in general, because you have to be, especially during recruitment. I don't know if you've like seen on the quad in the fall how crazy it gets with all of the.
I've seen it.
You've seen it, so it's intimidating. It is, and it's a lot. But during the actual recruitment process, you know, you're talking to like 20 to 30 girls every day, like different girls, and trying to learn about them and be like, all right, do you think that they would thrive here? Do you think that they would thrive somewhere else? Do you think that they would enjoy being here or fit at another chapter better? So it's just that idea of trying to be more social and be more open to meeting people who might not be your best friend, but you can still connect with. Because that happened to me. I met some girls where we really connected through like a single conversation that we had. And, you know, even though they went to a different chapter, they went somewhere else and I haven't really seen them since. It's just that basis of making connections with people, and being able to talk, and just meet people without having motives, if that makes sense. So I think that's what it really taught me, that and like, you know, the conversational skills, because every time you're reading these girls, you're having like 10 to 15 minute conversations with them at once, and you're just meeting this girl. So you're like, okay, what do we have to talk about, you know? So I feel like that's what it's taught me in essence, besides all the social stuff. It's being a better conversationalist, I would say.
So it's kind of like speed dating.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell.
Essentially, it is, because you're going like through all these people and you're like, all right, do they like us? Do we think that they would thrive here? Would they fit better somewhere else? Because it's all about making the most of your experience. So yeah, it's essentially like speed dating, honestly.
And you're trying to sell it to them.
Exactly.
Marketing. So
it is. It's trying to sell your sisterhood. It's trying to, you know, sell the idea of the potential friendship that you can have. You know, it's your next 4 years on campus if you don't drop. And, you know, Tri Delta is an Oregon campus that I identify with, and people know a little bit about it. So exactly, what do you bring to the table? What do they bring? It's not always like transactional as it seems, but it's, you know, it's your own experience and it's what you want at a college. So it's an important decision. So
yeah, I'm glad to hear from your experience with your sorority that it kind of gave you everything that a sorority is supposed to, that kind of sisterhood, and to be able to bond and be able to sell it to other girls who are coming in.
Yeah, definitely.
And now to kind of maybe go back a little bit, I'd like to ask you about your history and interests within the arts.
Yeah.
Just a small question.
Very, very small. Not really in particular anyway. Yeah, I have always had an interest in the arts as long as I can remember. I've been playing piano since I was like 5 years old. That's something that I jumped on very quickly. My parents were both musical people. My dad was a phenomenal singer when he was young, and my mom used to play the flute. So there's music in both sides of my family, but it was never pursued, I feel like, as much as maybe I have pursued it. So yeah, when I was 5, I started playing piano, and I haven't really recently as much anymore. Ever since like COVID happened, that's when I kind of backed off of it a little bit, and then obviously I came here and I don't have as much time to practice anymore or anything like that. But piano is definitely the big one. I'll probably talk about that a bit later. But besides that, I also did a little bit of dance, which wasn't my favorite, but I still have like, it's part of like theater and that whole experience, so I wanted to get some of that. And acting and theater, that was a big thing for me that I never thought I would do. And then I ended up loving it when I started. So, I started in musical theater and stuff like that, and slowly transitioned into film when I came here because of all of my wonderful roommates who let me be in their movies. So yeah, that's kind of where my interest all stems from. I never really took an interest in like sports or anything athletic, which maybe I should have, but I tried like, soccer. I tried karate when I was a kid, and nothing ever stuck the way that piano or acting or singing really did.
I mean, I think you're doing just fine now. I don't think kicking a soccer ball around would have changed a ton.
Yeah, really.
that is incredible, and I'm curious as to kind of like what each different kind of art form taught you in their own ways.
Definitely.
That's kind of, I know you have to reflect back.
No, yeah, for sure. Piano is an interesting one. Piano definitely taught me the most about who I wanted to be in life, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it teaches you the most about persistence, I guess you would say, and drive and, being hardworking, because I got to a certain level in piano to where I wasn't growing anymore as as a pianist. Oh, excuse me. I wasn't growing anymore. And I decided that I probably needed a new piano teacher because the current ones weren't pushing me to grow anymore. So when I was 13 or 14, I believe, we found this new music school by my house, which is also where I ended up doing theater classes. And my piano teacher there, her name is Olga. I love her. But she wasn't easy on me like the rest of them were. She was a little bit more pushy, more tough. But I think that's what I needed because it taught me, how to be better, if that makes sense. Because I started with her, and then she started convincing me to start competing. Believe it or not, piano competitions are a thing. As nerdy as that might sound, they are. And auditions and stuff. I used to, before COVID, throughout high school, I used to go to Princeton in New Jersey and do yearly exams, piano exams every year, where you would have to do, prepare like technique stuff like scales and, all that jazz, and then play a program. And eventually it got to the point where I was playing like 45-minute programs at these exams, and like that's never something I thought I would do. And it's all memorized, and it's all, like crazy stuff like Bach and Rachmaninoff and Mozart and Beethoven, all those fun things. So piano definitely taught me persistence and having a drive to be good at something. But in a sense, it also taught me that it's okay not to be the best all the time. When I was, growing up doing piano, when I started with this new teacher, Olga, the older I got and the more advanced the skills got, I would say, the more I wanted to kind of be the best. And I remember that was very stressful, trying to live up to something that maybe is not physically possible for me, is not an easy task to live up to. So I remember having like a recital, for example. It was one of my last, I think it was my last recital before COVID hit, where I was the oldest person in the group, and the way the program works is usually she puts like the youngest kids first, who are like the newest, and then the most advanced players go last. And she put me dead last in this program, and it was the first time I'd ever been last, because there was always this one kid. His name was Andrew, and I was always second to last, and then he was last because he was always better than me. But she put me last this time, and I was like, oh, okay. And of course I let that get to me, and I cracked, and I completely messed up the piece that I was playing. And I remember that got to me so hard. And I was like, damn, like, I'm really not the best. Like, I suck so hard. But also in a sense that, like, I feel like I kind of needed that to happen, because it also kind of took some of the pressure I was putting on myself off of my shoulders. Because I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself when it comes to stuff. And it's not that serious in reality. And I realized that through piano, although it did teach me good skills like being hardworking and being able to practice and hone your skills, it also taught me that I have perfectionism issues that I needed to work on. And so when I realized that, because I had messed up royally during this one recital, I feel like that kind of helped me realize that I was pushing myself too hard. And it essentially helped me find this balance between working hard and, you know, giving it all you've got, but also not going overboard. So that was a lot. That's what piano has kind of taught me, though, which is kind of a weird analogy for it, but that's what that came from. And then in terms of, like, acting and performing, this one's more, like, cut and dry, but just teaching me to kind of be myself, I guess. I don't know. I was never really that extroverted growing up, which is weird to say because now I can't stop talking ever. But I never was. So when I started acting and being on stage and like performing in a different way, because when you're performing for piano, it's your skills. But when you're performing and acting, it's your whole self. So in that sense, I kind of needed to learn how to be comfortable with myself in order to be comfortable playing other people. And that's one of those big skills that I feel like I learned, because I was playing all these characters that were super confident and were super, like, you know, into themselves, and not narcissistic, I would say, but just, you know, very comfortable with themselves. So I had to learn to do that for myself before I could do that for anybody else. And that really helped me in the long run, I feel like.
Wow. You don't know how many whiplash jokes and puns I could be making right
keep
now.
making them. Keep making them. Trust me, I'm going to talk about Whiplash
maybe
later, because I saw that on the list is like favorite movies, and Whiplash is up there.
Yeah.
Because I relate to it a lot. So go ahead, make the jokes.
I mean, those jokes are they're not quite my tempo right now.
Okay.
But I mean, that story was very, very compelling, because I mean, you want to drive. I mean, a lot of high achieving people, they want to drive to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
They want to aspire to be the best.
Right.
That's a better word. And you know, you pushed yourself, and I know that looking back on it now, it seems kind of trivial, but it kind of helps to develop where you are now.
Yeah.
Doing the things that you're doing, and that kind of, all those kinds of things help us develop.
Absolutely.
So kind of, well, do you have any fun stories, maybe less intense fun stories from performing, whether it be musically or acting?
This story isn't really funny. Like, I think it's funny now. In the moment, it wasn't funny, but now to me, it's funny. So when I was 14, I was a freshman in high school, and like I said, I had started with this new piano teacher like a few years prior, and I was doing auditions and exams and stuff. So she sent me to this one audition, and she was like, "It's an audition for Carnegie Hall," and I said, "What?" And she was like, "No, don't be nervous. Like, it's fine." So I go to this audition not thinking anything of it. And it was like a competition. And I won this competition. And they wanted me to play at Carnegie Hall. And I was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." You know why? Because that's too much pressure. As much as, like, you know, that's a goal for certain artists and musicians, that seemed very scary to me. But I did it anyway. So I remember the day of, we went, and there was, I don't remember how many, there was a lot of people that did the competition, and then they picked like a handful that won and got to like perform a program for everybody. So of course, also my entire family was invited. So there's like 15 people that came to New York City just to watch me play. And I was like, okay, like if I mess up now, like it's going to be over for me. I'll never show my face again in public. But so there was like set 1 and set 2, and they put me in set 2 of this program, which meant that I got to be backstage while set 1 was performing, and they had pianos backstage, so I was going to practice. So I go backstage, and I'm starting to practice the piece that I, competed with and I won for, and it completely leaves my brain. Ryan, I don't remember anything about this piece. I had been playing this piece for over a year. It was one that was like in my back pocket. I could pull it out, play it, no problem. And I sat down to practice in the back stages of Carnegie Hall, and it left my brain. And of course, I didn't have sheet music, so I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go on stage and like literally not know what to play. So I was freaking out. And then they called set 2 on. And I remember walking out on stage, and I sat down at the piano, and I blacked out. I don't really remember actually playing on stage until about like 3/4 of the way through. And I remember like coming back and I was like, oh my god, I'm playing right now, don't mess up. So long story short, I didn't mess up, and I actually remembered the piece, and I was just freaking out, and that's why it had left my brain. So in the moment, it was not funny. In the moment, I was literally like scaring myself to death. But now looking back at it, I was like, why did I do that to myself? I literally like blacked out because I was so nervous to perform in front of family and friends, and my
who were supporting you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not really like I think it's a funny story because I look back and I'm like, it was never that serious. It's really okay. But little me was very scared, but she did it. And she grew from it. So that one is quite a funny one. In terms of acting, I just always had good times while acting. All the classes that I took, I made a lot of friends in, so we would always have fun like backstage during the days of performances and stuff like that. There's no real like specific thing that comes to mind. It was just like fun stories, hanging out backstage and doing everybody's like makeup and hair and running lines with people, and all of these kids that helped me become who I am today. Are really fond memories of being backstage and acting, and on the stage too. I loved almost every single one of the shows that I ever did. So, in terms of fun stories, that's what I got. That's what's coming to my mind.
So you had kind of an outer body experience there.
Oh yeah.
But it's interesting. Like, I guess the muscle memory of it all kind of took over, and your preparation. And
oh yeah,
like that.
It 100% was all muscle memory because, like I said, I had been playing that piece for over a year at that point. So my brain forgot it, but my hands and my fingers did not, and that's what saved me, which is kind of crazy because that's a really powerful thing, muscle memory. I never realized how powerful it can be until I blacked out while I was playing it. Apparently, there's a video of me playing it, and I didn't mess up, but I just don't remember it, so.
Even your mind, like what things your mind can do when you're not even conscious of it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I was also randomly crept into my head, and you said when you were playing piano, the kid behind you, his name was Andrew.
Yeah.
That's Miles Teller's character's name.
Yes.
Whiplash. Andrew Neiman.
Andrew Neiman, yeah.
Wow, you really did. You just lived Whiplash.
Oh yeah, I pulled a Whiplash 100%. That was you never really saw me on screen, but I was there, guys. I was in the band. Don't worry.
Damien Chazelle, he was in the audience.
Oh yeah, and he saw me and he got inspired, and he was like, I need to write Whiplash now. What year was that movie filmed? Yeah, no, it was filmed when I played at Carnegie Hall, guys. That's when he wrote Whiplash.
It's canon. It's canon to the story.
It's a canon event.
Of it all. And kind of speaking of filmmaker, since I love my transitions.
Yes.
You were part of maybe the most stacked suite of all time.
I am.
And I'm wanted to ask, like, what is living with so many film and comm students, like, how has that influenced you?
It's so great. I love all of my roommates. I love the dynamic we all have, because we're all very dedicated to what we do, even though I'm not in film. We're all very dedicated to what we do, and I see how hard they work behind the scenes, whereas maybe, it's your e-board, it's Michaela and Ronnie and Julia, so you guys all see them in QFS, but I get to see them behind the scenes too, and I see all of the ish that they have to deal with and everything that they go through to give everybody the most amazing experience possible, and they really deserve more credit than they could ever get. But living with a bunch of creatives is great because I feel like it also pushes me to be better and wonder more, like, what else could I do? What else am I capable of? And it happened. I feel like the switch kind of came even before we, like, all were roommates my freshman year. At the time, Jen, you just had her on.
Yep.
Jen was just my roommate, and then we ended up, switching to the suite in our sophomore year. But freshman year, I remember the first project I'd ever did with them was a music video. And after seeing the results for that, I remember thinking, like, oh, these kids are legit. They're serious. Because I never really had, like, film kids at my high school, I guess. I went to, like, a normal public high school, and nobody really had, like, the niche for film. So it was never something I saw before. I didn't realize the caliber of what they could do until they showed me, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So, yeah, they really pushed me to be better and take an interest in stuff that I never thought could be possible. Like, not this winter, but last winter, one of my roommates, Julia Schnarr, we were just talking about her before, my good friend, she came to hang out with me for a weekend, and I wanted to try directing something for the first time. I'd never done it before, but just, like, for fun. And I had this idea for a music video for Hosier's song. And so I asked Schnarr if she could help me, and she said yes, because she's the best. So she was my cinematographer, and over the course of 2 days, I directed this music video. And it was crazy because it was never something I did before, and it was never something that I thought I could do or ever do. But Schnarr really helped me as my cinematographer, and she was like, trust what you want. If you need help with, like, the technicalities, I'll help you. But she was a really great help, and I ended up loving how it turned out, and I was like, damn, this is, like, something that's mine now that I, like, really just created from scratch, from the ground up. So yeah, that's kind of how that impacts me. It allows me to be a lot more creative and a lot more wondrous with what I think I could make of my college experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel like your skills all kind of come together well, like you with marketing, Julia Schnarr with her directing, Julia Morelli with her writing and editing.
Yeah, Kuz with DP, Michaela AD, yeah, they're all there.
And for those who are watching, I also had Julia Morelli on with Ari. And yeah, and I'm just like you said, I'm sure that you've all kind of, your skills kind of come together and you all help each other, and it's great creative environment. Like,
it really is.
I'm also, like, curious as to what, and you brought up your music video, but what other kind of projects have you worked on together?
Yeah.
From your memory.
So, like I said, the first one was that music video. It was All the Stars, which was very fun. It ended up looking so great. So great that I couldn't believe how great it looked, especially as freshmen. The fact that they did that, I was like, oh, wow. So we did that. I did my own music video with Schnarr. What else did we do? We did the 24-hour film challenge. Not last semester, but, like, our sophomore year. And the team was actually Julia Schnarr, Charlie, and Grace Doyle, who's sitting right over there. Femme Fatales, that was their team, and I was begging them to act in it, and of course they said yes because I love them. But yeah, so we did that. I had done the 24-hour film challenge also our freshman year, but I remember that we didn't really know what we were doing, so not to, like, crap on that one, but that one was kind of a flop. And we all know it. Every time we rewatch it, I'm like, oof, guys. But the one that we did.
You should see mine.
Oh, you should see yours? I'll have to go watch it after this then. But the one we did sophomore year turned out so great. She's Perfect. From the story that Schnarr came up with to how they framed everything, the editing, the dialogue, it ended up being really, really cool. And I didn't think that they could do all that in 24 hours because it was a lot of work. But they did it. They stayed up well past my bedtime and finished it. So that one was super cool, and they won first place for it. So congrats, you guys. I'm looking at you, Grace. First place winner over there. So yeah, I did a few of those. For QFS, I was in a mini production that I think it was, I don't even remember whose team it was, but it was, it was all my roommates, and Connor too, Connor Youngberg. And we did, like, a Knives Out spin-off, Spoons In, yeah. And that one was so fun to make. Murdering Julia Morelli at the end was really the highlight of my day.
Yeah.
Spoilers, sorry guys. But yeah, that was funny to film because I got to jump on her back and smother her to death, which was very funny. But yeah, that was another one that I did. And then also transition, I was just in the fall production with you, Sleight of Hand, and I think that was the latest thing I did besides Spoons In. I hadn't done anything else because they got busy with like other classes. So I think that since then, this Sleight of Hand was like the first thing I've done in a while.
Awesome. And it's just always great to be around creative people. Like growing up, like I never did theater or anything like that, but I transferred to Quinnipiac and decided to become all of these things, like going to act.
Yeah,
I've not really acted before Sleight of Hand, so that's where we find ourselves now on our list. So I kind of just want to ask, what drew you to want to be in Sleight of Hand?
Well, first of all, I knew it was going to be, the e-board who is overseeing it are my roommates who I trust very much. I'm also when I say my roommates, I'm counting Ronnie as one of those roommates because he's kind of like our 7th roommate. Honorary roommate, exactly. So I knew that they were overseeing it, and I trust them to do something good. And also the character, I don't know, of Lydia, I thought she was very cool because, she seemed like she was going through this breakup. And it didn't really she didn't let it like bother her outwardly, if that makes sense. Like she kept going, she kept doing her own thing, living her own life. And even though he was trying to get back at her, she's just very strong-willed, I would say. Even at the end, spoilers, I'm not going to spoil it because it hasn't come out yet, but even at the final scene, she doesn't back down. That's all I'm going to say about a certain situation that happens, and she doesn't let people walk all over her, and I like that about her because I like to think that I'm the same way. So when I was reading the script, that's how I was kind of envisioning her, and as I was reading it, I was like, oh, I really want to play this part now, as I was kind of, reading it and envisioning it.
Awesome. I very much saw that. I mean, I was scared.
You were scared? You were nervous? I mean, I was scared too, of course, because you want it to be good. But, the more I did, I feel like the less scared, especially having Finn as our director. Finn was an amazing director. He was so great to work with. And I've not that I've never worked, because also my roommates, every time I act for them, they always like direct me. But I feel like working with Finn was the first felt like the real first director experience that I had because it was somebody who I didn't previously know and wasn't my roommate. And they were great. I had a lot of questions, and he was very particular with what he wanted for Lydia, and I really appreciated that because it helped me more become the character. So that's another thing that made me a little less nervous. Shout out Finn. They were great. I loved working with him.
Yeah, same here. And since this is kind of like the Sleight of Hand Q&A, kind of like, in my case, kind of like what drew me to Arthur was just the kind of character that just can't help himself, that tries to change but just can't.
But
I really
can't.
love those kinds of kind of anti-hero-y characters, kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with like Better Call Saul.
Oh, of course.
Oh, you are, if I'm recalling. Yeah, like Better Call Saul, like Slippin' Jimmy, he just can't change. Or
he can't help himself.
Or one of my other favorite shows, Barry, where he's someone who tries to, the whole premise of the show is him trying to change and he just can't change. So I saw that and I'm like, that's just a character I've always wanted to play, and I'm very fortunate to be able to. So to kind of build on this, I just want to ask kind of what you thought of your experience with Sleight of Hand.
Yeah.
I know you kind of already explained it.
Yeah, a little bit.
But maybe a little further.
Yeah, definitely. It was very fun. Everybody was very on set, very professional, and very willing to listen to one another, which I thought was good. I don't know, it was very fun. Even when I was like, there were some scenes where we had to film them and I was like, guys, I have to go to chapter, like for my sorority. But even that, they like made sure they got what they needed and they didn't like hold me for too long or anything like that. But at the same time, it just never felt like we were filming for hours, if that made sense. Like it went by really fast, and I didn't expect it to. But yeah, working with everybody and getting to know everybody, even though I'm not in that org, was really fun. And seeing everybody get to work on an actual project, especially the underclassmen, like freshmen and younger people who this might have been their first time working on any kind of production ever. That was kind of cool to see and witness firsthand.
Yeah. I know it was my first time.
Really?
Yeah, I've never not in like a professional feeling film shoot. Like going on a Q Tonight shoot is a little different from like kind of what QFS is doing, and to be doing that, but kind of lead acting and being there the entire day.
Yeah.
It taught me so much. Of course, working with you was a blast.
Thank you. Working with you was a blast.
Yeah. Some of our conversations in between scenes was some of my favorite moments. 'Cause there can be a lot of downtime And
yeah, especially during those montage scenes, as there was no audio.
Yeah.
We were just like messing around.
Yeah. Yeah, something I joke is that we had kind of the Adam Sandler thing where the love interest was way more attractive than he was. That's something
Oh my god.
That's a running joke I had. But yeah, it was just so great. And of course working with Finn and having a director who clearly has such a vision for the project.
Oh yeah. I could tell he definitely saw everything before he kind of told us our actions and stuff like that, which I appreciate, because you have to be really talented to be able to see something and like know what you want. Yeah, you have to be really in tune with that.
I'm sure he's probably wondering who the hell casted this guy. but it all worked out. We had a great time.
Hey, they were there during the auditions. Cast for a reason.
Yep, I hope it worked out. I guess that's more up to the audiences now to determine. But even working with you, I could tell that you were a real actor, because
real actor, quote unquote.
Like, not to spoil it. Yeah, I think the film will be out very close to when this is released. But I'm just gonna say the big emotional scene we had. I was kind of studying how you were approaching that, because I do not have much experience with acting, but you kind of kept you're kind of game faced the whole time.
Yeah, you gotta stay in. From what I've learned, because I've had to do big scenes like that before. One of the plays that I did when I was in high school is called Gypsy. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a pretty popular play, and it's a musical. And one of my best friends at the time in that theater group played my husband. So it was cool because we already had this like good relationship, and he got to play my husband, so we were very comfortable with each other. But at the end, there's this big like blowout fight scene at the end of that play, and I got to see a side of him before that I never had seen, because he's very talented. He's still doing acting now, actually. And he was very serious about it, and he did not hold back. And I was like, okay, so we're being serious actors. That's what we're doing. But I remember seeing him do that. Like, leading up to that scene, he was like, he just like keeping his distance and kind of just not isolating himself, but trying to get into the zone. Because if I went over and made him laugh, would he have been able to yell at me the same way in the scene? Probably not. So yeah, I've just seen that from certain experiences. Not to immerse yourself too much, because you don't want to put yourself in that unhealthy mindset. But yeah, in terms of keeping a game face at the same time, it's trying to stay in the headspace of this is what's happening to the character, and don't get distracted, because as soon as you start feeling better about it, that's when it doesn't come off as realistic, if that makes sense. So yeah, that scene I knew I had to. I was like, after we talked to Finn about it out in the hallway, I was like, all right, it's time to go.
Yeah, it's on. And yeah, because I remember kind of in between takes, I was just Ryan. It's just my need to kind of goof off. But I noticed like you were always kind of in the zone. I like to think when the cameras were rolling, I was Arthur, but it's great to kind of see how you approach it, and that's something I'm going to continue with as I continue acting, because it's just a craft I'm trying to learn a lot about, because it's something I really, really enjoy.
You definitely should. It's something I enjoy too, and even if it doesn't end up being like I probably won't pursue it after college. It's just something I do for fun as a hobby, but still, it's one of those things that can just help you be better at anything, well-rounded, just improving a skill,
Yeah, and just expressing emotions in that way too. Like, I've never been too expressive of a person, but to be a great actor, you kind of have to touch upon these characters who kind of emote in different ways, and kind of learning that is something that's very valuable. And I'm just excited for people to be able to watch this film. I know we're going to be premiering it at QFS sometime soon.
Ooh, fun.
I'm sure the announcement will be out.
I'm sure I'll hear about it soon from my roommates.
Yeah, literally just ask your roommate.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I'm just excited for people to see it. I'll do my best to promote it, and I'm just excited to see what the reception is and kind of what we can do next in QFS. So to kind of continue on with another one of your talents is your own history with podcasting. Since I'm not the only podcaster here.
Yeah.
I might not even be the best podcaster here.
I don't know about that.
I mean, I'm a fan of your show, and I just want to talk about, well, of course, your history of podcasting and your experience making your show Shit Talkers.
Yeah.
Which I can say on here because it's a name of something.
It's the name of the podcast. It's not a censor issue. It's SH exclamation point T. So it's not a bad word. Yeah, I took a class last semester actually with Dr. Burns, who I'm working for now currently. called Media Critics and Influencers. And so half of the class was learning how to write like a media critic. So I did a bunch of pieces on like, I don't know, like one of my favorite pieces that I had to write was like an opinion piece on like overhated female characters in television shows and in movies. So that was like the first half of the class, and then
So about Skylar White.
oh yeah, no, you best
Yep.
believe Skylar White was in it.
Yep.
But then the other half of the class was trying to be like an influencer. So there were 3 options. You can do blogs, but I didn't want to, as much as I like writing, I did not want to have another blog because I have to do one for my master's program anyway, and I was like, I really don't want to do another one. Vlogs on like TikTok, but I also kind of hate being like a TikTok influencer. I had to do a few of those videos for that class, and I really didn't like it. I was like dreading doing them. So podcast was the other option, and I've always wanted to try podcasting and kind of teach myself how to edit audio and stuff like that because I'd never done it before. So yeah, we had to do that for the class. We had to do it for 5 weeks, so there's only 5 episodes out, sadly. If I had more time, I would continue it this semester, but between my 2 jobs and position here and the 2 degrees, I'm not really as free as I used to be. But yeah, that was really fun making a podcast. I also got to work on it with one of my good friends, Hannah, who's in my sorority with me. And we knew when we were deciding to do this that it had to be like a comedy podcast because just the way that we interact with each other. I'm like, Hannah, we can like, I feel like we bounce off each other really quickly. So we knew it had to be that. And I was like, wouldn't it just be funny if we did it like, you know, on college related stories, but like went on like Reddit and found stories and just talked about all those issues and like our opinions on it and why people are crazy. And she was like, yeah, let's do that. And it ended up being so fun, and we got a decent amount of people to listen to it too, which was awesome. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, that's my experience with that. We didn't actually, I wish we had like recorded in here. We ended up just like every week we would go in her car and just record with our like baby mic, and that's what we would do. And I would record, you know, I would edit the audio after we got it all together. But it was really fun, and we also had some guests on too, so we had to have some of our friends on to debate some topics with us, and they were always really into it, which was super fun. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with 5 weeks of podcasting.
And I mean, I made sure to stand on business and listen to every episode.
Thank you.
I really, really enjoyed it. It was always entertaining just to kind of listen to your guys' perspectives on things. You know, I mean, there's a lot of normal people on Reddit who do rational things.
Oh, yeah, no, every story is, like, you know, completely normal. Nobody makes any rash decisions ever. Everybody's completely normal on that app.
Yeah, your Am I the A-hole segments were always, it's always very interesting. You had great guests on. And
I feel like it always makes you feel better about your own life because you're like, you know, no matter what happens, I will never be as psycho as some of these people.
Yeah, like sometimes, you realize maybe you have it more together than you actually
Than you
believe.
think, exactly.
And I think, you know, I would love to see you guys continue it. I know you're quite busy, as we've established here.
I am a bit this semester.
But I mean, now you see what this the studio looks like. Maybe you guys could come in here and
I
do
know,
it and
sign up and recruit people to help out.
recruit people. That would be a blast.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I kind of want to circle back on something. It's kind of your social media and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who's trying to market this show maybe a bit better, because as much as I enjoy the memes I make, I kind of want to do some other things. So, like, what are some ideas you have for, like, marketing something like your show or something else?
Yeah. So when we were marketing our show, it's a bit different because it depends on your tone of voice. So ours was a comedy podcast. So I'm like, all right, it's not really that hard. We can make, like, funny TikToks and stuff like that. And it's for our age group, you know, it's college-based age demographic. So in terms of that, we always just did kind of like funny, but also at the same time, like, showed our personalities through the post, essentially, I would say. It wasn't always like funny, like, because we were still trying to seriously market it, but we wanted to add that little tone of sarcasm into it as well. So in terms of TikTok, we found like trending audios and stuff like that. And did all that fun stuff. And then on Instagram, we did a lot of posts of just us, like, you know, us together, or we would do graphics that I make on Canva because I'm not an Adobe person. What else did we do? Oh, when we had, like, special guests on, we would do, like, you know, on Instagram stories, like, reveal who the special guest is or whatnot. We also did, like, from last night's episode, like, what was your favorite story? Like A, B, C, or D, and it would be like the 4 crazy stories that we talked about that day, and we had like polls and votes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I did that, and even the podcast that I'm working on now with my professor, it's a lot different because that one's a more serious academic tone because it's based off of a book that they're writing, like an actual book for college students, and it's their dissertation. So it can't be like this silly thing. It's more academic related, but even so, I actually just had a meeting with my professor right before coming here, and we were talking about strategy because the podcast launches next month for Women's History Month. And I was going through, I'm like, all right, we need, they have special guests on each episode of the podcast because they have like 15 different authors that are contributing to the book. So they interview each of the authors on this podcast, and they each talk about a specific topic that interests them and that they write about in the book. So I'm like, all right, well, we can do, a graphic with a bio about them and, a little blurb about what they're passionate about or how, they picked this topic. We can do, a carousel post for the actual, event of Women's History Month since they're launching then. We can do audiograms where you clip stuff. I know you do this on yours too, where you clip certain parts of an episode and post it there that you think will gain good traction and get people to want to listen. Because sometimes, podcasts can be longer. It's not really like short form content. So trying to convince people to listen is tricky. So that's where those audiograms come in when you clip a good part that can like catch people, suck people right in. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I've done for podcasting. But you're doing it. The audiograms are my favorite because it gets me interested. And I'm like, all right, what are you talking about in this episode? Like, will this episode interest me? But yeah, that's what I've been doing, or what I have done in terms of podcast marketing.
Very clever. Like maybe you, in your case, use maybe excerpts from their writing.
Yeah, exactly. Or even like during the podcast, because they write the chapter in the book and then they come on the podcast and talk about their chapter, so more in depth. So, while I'm editing, I'm making note of like specific parts of the interview during the podcast where they talk about why they're passionate about it or anything like that. And that's exactly what I'll pull, and I'll use that and I'll slap it on a carousel graphic with their headshot, and that's marketing.
And I like the term audiogram. I usually just call what I make like reels, but I like the term audiogram, and there is an art to it because you're trying to like find key points to like intrigue. They're like little previews of your show, but you also don't want to give away too much of kind of what you talk about, so it's kind of that fine line. That's something I've tried to kind of find in making those, but it's always fun. I feel like a lot of people, I always get told like, oh, I like your reels, so I'm like, okay,
reels are always
watch
exactly.
watch the actual show. So
yeah, please watch the actual show. It's just as good. But yeah, definitely those audiograms is just the term.
Awesome.
Yeah, that you just take a clip from a thing and put it in like reels or TikTok or wherever you want to put it. So
awesome. And now to kind of continue that, maybe ask you something a little more personal. Is like, what are some things that people may not know about you?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm sure it'll be very interesting considering the rest of our conversation.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything like huge. I'm like a pretty open book, honestly. But some people might not know I'm like a huge fangirl. I don't know if that's like a thing that a lot of people might know about me, but when it comes to like,
it's something I know.
It's something you know because I've told you about it. Yeah.
Yes.
But in terms of like films and movies and books and television shows, I can get really obsessed with stuff. I fall in love with certain characters or certain tropes or what would you call it? Like settings, I guess, very quickly. So, when it comes to like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, The Boys, Marvel stuff, there's a bunch of different fandoms and stuff that I really like to fangirl over, and I don't really talk about it a lot because I guess it's a thing that not can be like shamed, but it's like, oh, like the weird kid looking at like fandom and whatnot. But like I've always been nerdy and stuff, and that's never really gone away, even though I've been more extroverted and more like, open about other stuff as well. I feel like I'm a really big fangirl, and sometimes people don't realize how big until I start talking about it, and I could talk about stuff like that for hours. So yeah, I feel like that's like the biggest thing. I don't know if there's really anything else, but yeah, big fangirl, big nerd.
I mean, I feel like that's very normalized these days to enjoy things like that. And there's so so many comics, movies, shows, etc.
Literally.
I mean, it's always great to be passionate about things. Like, I know you talked about. I remember when we were filming Sleight of Hand, like Loki was on, and that was your
Oh yeah.
obsession of the week.
Loki. Oh, not even just of the week. Loki. Well, maybe the show itself, but the character of Loki in the Marvel universe has been my number one obsession since I was like 12. He has never fallen. As a character in all of the movies he's in, even though the first 2 Thor movies are interesting, but
A lot of Dutch angles.
yeah,
Yes.
it's and the script. Okay. Thor Ragnarok though, oh, phenomenal. Thank you, Taika Waititi. Thank you. Even though he kind of lost the mark on Love and Thunder, but we're not going to talk about that. Ragnarok. But yeah, Loki is just one of those characters where I became obsessed in middle school, and it just never really went away. So when the Loki show was happening, there were some great episodes in season 2 where I was like freaking out over them, and I was like, oh my god, next episode needs to come out like now. But yeah, that's definitely a big one. Loki is up there, and that's one I think that more people know about because I constantly talk about that obsession, especially with like my family who like my dad and my sister are also big Marvel fanatics, and way back when all the movies were still coming out, like pre-Endgame, we used to go see all the movies opening night in theaters and everything like that. So yeah, Loki, that's where it was. You don't know how upset I was when, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Infinity War, but hopefully everybody here has now seen Infinity War since it's been a few years. Yeah, at this point, if you haven't, this spoiler alert's not on me, but Loki dies in the first 10 minutes of that movie, and I was like, okay guys, he's coming back, right? He's coming back, and then he never came back, except for, in the show, but that's, again, that's 2012 Loki. So I was very upset about that, and I remember my dad and my sister looking at me like, she's gonna be mad when we go home because he was killed in the first 10 minutes of that movie. They did my boy dirty, but yeah.
I mean, I was the same way. I mean, I was a huge Marvel fan pre-Endgame as well, as were, everybody else.
Everybody.
So, like, I know you talk about being a fangirl. Do you have any other, like, more niche interests? Kind of.
Yeah. Let's see, niche interests. I was always a big like YouTube girl when I was growing up too, in terms of like, way back when, like Smosh and Markiplier and all of those like nerdy gaming or like, discussion based channels. MatPat, so sad that he's leaving YouTube. Oh my god. I feel like this is not really that niche anymore because they made a movie about it, but FNAF, when it first came out, all of those video games, I played them all religiously, and the lore behind it, I was like, oh my god, guys, this is so cool. But then they made the movie about it, and the movie was okay. It was fine. Josh Hutcherson was in it, so that was a plus. But FNAF was kind of a niche one before, I guess, they made the movie that nobody really talked about for a while. I don't know. Do I have any other niche ones? Oh, this is a book series, so I don't know if it's as niche to the book community, but to people I guess who don't read. There's a book series called Shadow and Bone, and an offset of that series called Six of Crows, and Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, which is the sequel. Those 2 books, those are also a big interest of mine, and they made a show on it too on Netflix. They made a Shadow and Bone show, but there's only 2 seasons, and they already canceled it because season 2 was awful. They messed up the writing, which I'm so mad about. But the books were really good, and those are 2 books that I like. Every time I pick them up, I can finish them in one sitting, and they're like 500-page books because they're just that good, and the characters are written so well, and the relationships and everything like that, and character development. That's one thing that I always look for is character development. So yeah, stuff like that. I don't know if there's any really other niche ones, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Boys, BoJack Horseman, all that jazz, all that stuff I'm in love with.
You never cease to be interesting.
Thank you.
And of course, you scour Reddit as well.
Oh yeah, I do. I'm a lurker though. I don't post on
lurker.
Reddit because I'm not a Redditor. I don't want to identify as a Redditor, so I try to avoid posting. But I am a lurker. I do go on there and just kind of look around every once in a while because there's some interesting stuff on there.
I mean, you are in like public relations. They're human interest stories. If you really think about it.
They are, and it's research. It's research for my job. So yeah.
Interesting. So, to kind of talk about your jobs, I'd like to ask you about your hopes and dreams professionally or in general. The easiest question in the world.
Of course. My hopes and dreams professionally, I want to be a dream, like not far-fetched, but like, you know, my absolute dream end goal is to do PR for movies and films. We've established that, as I said, when my roommates become famous, which they need to hurry up already, I will be doing the PR for their films if they'll have me. Also, though, for PR and travel, kind of what I'm doing now, actually, the agency that I'm working at now, which is the travel-based one, I would love to be able to travel as part of, you know, my work, as part of my job. And having that combination of stuff seems really fun. So in terms of that, that's kind of where I want to be, either like at an agency or in like the PR or marketing department of like a specific company. In terms of not, I guess you would say, like not career-wise, not professionally, I want a beach house. That's my only hope and dream. I just want a beach house one day, you know, on the Jersey Shore. And I don't know, I just want to be happy with what I do, and I think I'm on the right track for that because I'm really passionate about what I do, and I feel like I'm the kind of person where I don't need to make a ton of money, even though I want the beach house. But I more just want to be able to create stuff and put stuff out into the world, and I think that I can do that with the path that I'm on. So yeah, if that kind of answers the question.
Your Emily McManaman Barbie dream house.
Yeah, Barbie
Malibu,
dream house.
Jersey Shore dream house.
Snooki dream house.
Oh, that would be a sight to see.
Oh yeah, it would.
I know, random thought from your podcast about the story about the mother who bought the beach
You
house.
remember that?
I do remember that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the mother who like gave up her college tuition, her daughter's college tuition, yeah, to buy the dream house. Oh, that was a bad one.
After her husband passed, the money he left.
Damn, you remember everything.
Yep.
That's crazy. You got a good memory.
Yeah, I do. For things like this.
Oh yeah, for things that like when it comes to like studying for an exam.
Oh yeah,
my brain.
It's out the window when it comes to shit talkers lore. Yeah, I have it all down. Yeah. So that's the first thing I thought of when you said beach house. I'm like,
that's so funny. Yeah, you're right.
Don't worry, it'll be from your marketing PR money.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So kind of talk about. I also like to ask the golden question, which is some of your favorite movies.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan. So.
Yeah. I was waiting for this one because we were talking about it literally last semester, and I was like, no, I don't want to give it away.
I did tell you specifically not to tell me.
You told me, you were like, don't tell me, we're gonna save it. And I was like, okay. I don't have a specific list, but I have like my number one of all time, which is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's my favorite movie of all time. I know every single word to that movie. You can't watch that movie with me because I'll just say everybody's lines. Yeah.
The price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's one of my favorite movies. I'm trying to think of like a particular reason. It's like, you know, the trio in that movie is Ferris, obviously Cameron, and Sloane. And back home, I kind of like have two best friends of mine, and we're kind of like a trio of stuff. So every time we went out to like do, it just kind of reminded me of that like dynamic of three best friends. That there's no real like, you know, no one's getting isolated. It's just three best friends who are actually best friends together, and they can go out and do a bunch of random stuff and always have fun together no matter what they're doing. And it kind of reminds me of me and my two best friends because I feel like we're the same. So that, and also the idea of like just Ferris as a character. I love him. And I always kind of wanted to be that in high school too, because I feel like he's an interesting character where he's popular in high school, but like not for the wrong reasons. Like everybody just knows him because he's just so friendly and just like loves to do stuff and like have fun, and he's open to being friends with everybody. So I really like that about him, as opposed to like the usual like popular kid trope, which is like jock and mean, or, you know, like the girl who's like super beautiful but is really like not that nice. So I like that about him, where he was like a little bit of a mix of everything. And that's who I kind of wanted to be. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off is my favorite. In terms of other ones that there's no real like list or ranking, Whiplash is one of them. Because like I said, I grew up as a, you know, as an artist, as a pianist, as a musician, and not my piano teachers were never abusive the way that J.K. Simmons is in that movie. But it just reminded me the drive, you know, that Andrew Neiman has of like wanting to be the best so much until it ends up like hurting him, until he literally almost like, you know, loses his mind that's what I was talking about before with piano, where like I started getting really good and I noticed I was getting good, and I was like, well, what else could I do? And you just keep going until you crash and burn. And I never did crash and burn. My crash and burn was messing up that one recital, but for Andrew Neiman, it was getting in a car crash and like, you know, messing up that one performance that he did, and getting kicked out of Schaefer. But in a sense, it was kind of like, you know, parallels in terms of that mentality. So when I watched that movie, I was like, oh, this is my life.
Literally me.
Literally me, guys. I'm literally Andrew Neiman. So that one, The Social Network, I also love. It makes me upset because these are all movies with like male, like lead male characters, which makes me like, no. But I have some that are not. I'm gonna talk about them in a second. But The Social Network, which is obviously the Mark Zuckerberg Facebook movie, that's just one of the movies where like I can't describe really what I like. The writing is just so good. And I can watch it over and over again and like not get bored of it. And of course, Andrew Garfield and Jesse Eisenberg are excellent in it, and Justin Timberlake because he's also in it. So that's another one of my favorites. Aaron Brockovich is another one of my favorites, which is kind of a more niche movie. I feel like not as many people have heard of it. But it's with Julia Roberts, and it's based on a true story. It's about this woman who she has like 3 kids, and her husband had passed away, so she's trying to basically like support her family, and she gets this job after like getting in a car accident. She has a lawyer who represents her, and eventually she gets a job with him at like the law firm, and it's a story about how they uncover this it wasn't like a gas leak, but basically the organization like PSE&G was like their water was being polluted, but they weren't telling people about it, so people were getting sick by like drinking this water, like really, really sick. And so the whole movie is about them like trying to fight against this huge corporation. It's this tiny law firm. And Aaron Brockovich, who is Julia Roberts, is the lead, and she is just so great. That's one of like my favorite characters in TV ever. I also just love Julia Roberts. But that one is a phenomenal movie. It's very well written. Tangled is another fun one. Tangled is you know, my like one cartoon movie that's up there. But I love Rapunzel, and I identify with her a little bit, so I love that movie. And it's also just like a good Disney movie. Like there's some Disney movies coming out now that like aren't as good as they used to be. But you know, Tangled era, Princess and the Frog, like all those classics, I'm in love with.
I could see it.
You can see it.
You guys could have like a blonde off.
Yeah, exactly. I need to just grow my hair a few more inches, and then we'll be matching. So yeah, those are some of like my favorite movies. Honorable mention is Rocket Man with Taron Egerton, which is Elton John. But Grace knows what I'm talking about. I also saw Elton John in concert. He's one of my favorite artists. I love that man. So when that movie came out, I was literally like sobbing in the theater. I was like, oh my god, this is my man. And I love Taron Egerton too, and he did it perfectly. And Kate Connor's also in that movie, and he was a baby in that movie, but he's also very talented and very good. So Rocketman, I would say, is an honorable mention. It's probably like number 6.
Where does Sleight of Hand rank on your favorite?
Sleight of Hand is it's definitely top 10. It's definitely top 10. It might be in between Rocketman and Thor Ragnarok, I would say.
I guess that's a nice placement.
Yeah, you know, it's not so bad. It's number 7, you know.
Yeah. And Ferris Bueller's Day Off, we all love our fun high school movies like Dazed and Confused.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I was setting that one up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was a great selection of films.
Thank you.
And it's, like I said, like film, like what people enjoy, always says a lot about them.
Yeah, it's a very wide range. We go from Whiplash to Tangled is kind of a crazy branch.
I was going to say, but you know what? I feel like that's very you.
Yeah, say it. It is, though, because, you know, it's different aspects of life, I guess. I don't know. Every single one of those movies, I mean, except I would say, like, The Social Network, I don't really relate. That's just a movie that I love because the writing's, like, top-notch. But, yeah, some of them just relate to me in, like, different ways, and there's, you know, there's different sides of people. Sometimes it's not only just one face that people can show. So I feel like that is kind of that explanation with Tangled and Whiplash being on the same playing field. Yeah,
I mean, and even different phases of life. Like you kind of sometimes you see movies differently as you get older, and certain movies speak to you at one point of your life, and maybe speak differently at another.
Definitely.
So I feel like that's very, very, very interesting. It's one of my favorite top 5s that I've heard.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
So kind of with it all said, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. I just loved being here, and thank you so much for having me. I loved talking about all this stuff that I haven't talked about to anybody in a long time. I don't know. Grace, did you learn anything new about me? Nod your head or shake your... You did? Grace was like surprised because she told me that you were like, oh, come over, like you'll learn more stuff about Emily. And Grace is like, I don't need to know. I know everything there is to know about Emily because I've been besties with Grace for a while. But I'm glad you learned something new, Grace. I'm glad you did.
Didn't know you went to Ohio.
I did go to Ohio, yeah, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I went there a few times, and it's very cool. They have a lot of cool stuff there, so.
And that's the magic of the Zicast.
It is.
Not to break my arm, patting myself on the back, but yes, that's the magic of the Zicast. And thank you. I mean, this was a great birthday present for myself.
It's your birthday today?
5 days from now.
Okay. Oh my God, you scared me. I was like, no way, I missed it.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's 5 days from now.
Okay, I'll catch you 5 days from now then.
I turned the big 2-1.
2-1.
And this was just excellent. It was great to talk to you again because we haven't really met up since the film.
I know, because you went to Sundance, and then I started this crazy semester with Grace.
And that was amazing. That's
I know.
Something I'll continue to talk about on here.
Definitely.
But like I said, it was just amazing to have you on and to learn all of these things. Like we said, we talked in between scenes, and that was amazing. And that's where I got a lot of the knowledge for the things
all
I
the
wrote
questions
here.
from.
It was great to hear it again and great to expand upon it. So as always, this is Ryan Ziaks with the Zicast, where everyone has a story. Signing off. Thank you for watching.